Hey guys, MCU Collect here with another figure review. Next up is the Hasbro Marvel Legends series Shop Disney / Hasbro Pulse exclusive. This is the X-Men, the animated series VHS box releases. Here we have Mr. Sinister. I got mine from Shop Disney or Disney Store, shopdisney.com. They got theirs before Hasbro Pulse, which isn't always the case. It's kind of funky how it all works. Shop Disney doesn't put anything up until they have it in stock. Of course, there's no pre-order available with them, but here we have Mr. Sinister, and he is looking pretty good. The box, obviously, is the same type of design as the previous VHS X-Men releases. We have Jubilee and Wolverine so far. UK has already gotten Jean Grey and Storm, I think, and that's it. And then Morph, we know, is coming. There was another one that was just announced, too, right? Man. There was another one, right? That's going to drive me crazy. Anyway, the reason why I wanted to show you guys the boxes is because the boxes, while they're the same height, they are definitely a different width, because Mr. Sinister is quite large, as you could see by the previously released one from the Wendigo Build-A-Figure wave. That cape becomes really bulky, so you could see that, I mean, he's barely wide enough to fit in the box that he's given, so there was no way to fit him in the normal size boxes. So he has an extra wide box, which almost kind of works out remember those, this is old school, so a lot of you youngins aren't gonna know this, but VHS's, when there was a double VHS set, two tapes, like Titanic, the movie, right? Such a long movie, they had to put it on 2 tapes. Crazy stuff like that. So this kind of looks like, a double box set kind of deal. So it's kind of cool. And then, of course, you can see he's facing the opposite direction as the hero. So, with the front of the box, they are looking in facing off against each other, so that's kind of cool how they do that. But looking at the artwork, looks really awesome. Really like the way it came out. Looking at the back, you get a look at the digital render of the figure, and the bio reads, "The twisted geneticist Mr. Sinister seeks to create the perfect mutant life form. His chosen test subjects, Jean Grey and Cyclops." So let's get right to it and open it up. So on video, I'm actually going to show you guys how this works, because it is the plastic-free packaging. People are curious. A lot of people haven't seen yet, so this is for those that haven't seen how that's all going to work. Basically, the figure is going to be stuck in cardboard and wrapped in paper. The paper is also going to wrap up any accessories or anything like that, but Mr. Sinister does not come with any accessories. He is all by himself because he's a lot of figure. Still sucks, we want to get as much stuff as possible with it. So the cape is all strewn through that cardboard. We'll put that off to the side because I don't have display room for these, so I end up putting them back in there. And here we have Sinister looking interesting. He's probably the most cel-shaded of all the cel-shaded figures. And it's kind of wild, his cel shading, and I didn't know this at the time. I don't know if it was because of the digital render. He actually has some cel shading in his hair. That's actually kind of a nice touch that they did, a little bit of that extra-ness to there, but man, that's a lot of cel shading that I don't care for off the top. First looking at him, the cel shading looks bad. It's so much more noticeable on this guy than some of the other ones. And what a huge difference between the two releases, the comic release and the animated series. I actually really like the animated series colors, but man, that cel shading is pretty crazy. So let's get in for a closer look at Mr. Sinister. Okay, so here's a closer look at Mr. Sinister. So, right straight up, guys, I don't like the cel shading, and I've mentioned this before. I'm not the biggest fan of cel shading. I just don't care for it. Jubilee was pretty minimal, not a big deal. Wolverine, hey, it's not a whole lot, okay. I need to take a closer look at Jean, Storm, and Morph to see how much they are. But Mr. Sinister, he's got a shit ton of cel shading on him, guys. Holy crap, and I don't care for it. The colors are good. There's just too much of the gray, but some of the cel shading that I think is done really nicely is here on his hair. You see that little bit of blue there on his hair. So taking a look at the box, so when you see Mr. Sinister, look, he's got that blue cel shading for the hair. So they did that quite nicely on the head sculpt here. I'm glad they didn't do the shading of his face and things like that, because then it would have looked bad. Because this face looks really good. It's actually painted better than the original release version that I have, because the teeth paint was just real sloppy on this guy, whereas here it's much cleaner looking. So I really like that. The red inside the collar, I actually like the way that cell shading looks there. I don't have a problem with it. It's just the gray throughout, like, the whole thing, like right on his feet, going all the way up his legs, into his crotch, his torso, his chest, shoulders, the arms. The belt gets a little bit, that's not a problem. There's actually some darker red in there as well, and same on the wrist cuffs there. That is actually a nice touch when you get that shading there. It's just the gray, it's just too much throughout, and I know I'm bitching and complaining about it quite a bit, but in just my opinion, there's just too much of it. And I know a lot of you guys say the same thing. You guys don't really care for cell shading. It is what it is with the animated series line. You know, that's the aesthetic that they're going for. I'm all good with that. It's just in this particular case, I think they went a little too heavy with the cell shading. But you guys let me know in the comments below if you think it's too much or not. I think it does, but again, I love the blue that they use for him. I think it looks really good. And the head sculpt is done really, really well. It's just for me, it's just the gray. But yeah, good looking Mr. Sinister. Let's zoom out for his articulation. Okay, so let's take a look at Mr. Sinister. Again, if you have the original release, you know exactly what to expect, as they did not change anything on this guy from the previous release. Not even a new head sculpt like Wolverine was. So he can look down that much. Looking up is a little tricky. He can do it, but the collar piece kind of gets in the way a bit. You get a full rotation in there, but the collar would actually kind of hinder that and stop it. Not really a whole lot of pivot going on in that neck. The shoulder you can get to go up straight out like so. You can do a full rotation in there. You just have to be mindful of those shoulder pads in there, as I try to do it and all of a sudden can't. There we go. Full rotation. Upper bicep swivel in there. Double jointed elbow. There is pins on it because again, these are reused body molds, so double jointed elbow gives you that much bend. Their wrists swivel and they do hinge. We have an open hand for the left and a fist for the right. That is the same exact combination on the original release. You can crunch forward that much. The cape is really huge and kind of gets in the way. He can crunch back a little bit, but then you can't really get him to stand with the cape tassels, so careful there. There is a waist swivel in there. Legs go out that far apart, which is really good. He can kick forward that much, not a whole lot. Go back a little bit. There is a thigh cut kind of at the mid thigh there. It's not an upper thigh like I would usually say. Double jointed knee like so. Not the greatest bend, but not terrible, right? There is a calf swivel there right at the top of this little boot there. Foot hinges all the way down, a little bit of hinge up, ankle pivot, peg holes at the bottom of the feet. So decent movement out of this guy, but again, if you have the original release, you know exactly what to expect. Okay, so now that I have them side by side, there is a little bit of a difference. Haha, I spotted it, and it's so minimal that it's really not a big deal. But here, you notice the lines throughout his body. He has that going all the way up into the neck. This new animated series one, he does not have that. As you can see, his neck is completely smooth, and it is painted all white to match his skin color. So there is somewhat of a difference, but it's extremely minimal again. But they would have had to modify the sculpt of it, so the tooling had to be adjusted a little bit to accommodate for the smooth neck. So there has been something of a change, which is good, because the other figures, you know, they at least did different things. Like Wolverine, brand new head sculpt, that's cool. Jubilee didn't. Well, Jubilee got an older head sculpt in addition to, so I guess she didn't really get anything new. That kind of sucks. That doesn't really work. So Wolverine, he gets something new. Storm, I believe, has a new head sculpt, and Morph's got some new legs. We don't know about the torso yet, but his legs are new, and we know those legs would be perfect for a Cyclops, so that's got to be coming, I would imagine, in this line as well. Okay, so here we have the three that have released here in the US so far. So Mr. Sinister, Wolverine, Jubilee. Jubilee first became available through Shop Disney. Wolverine came through Hasbro Pulse. Mr. Sinister through Shop Disney. Shop Disney has gotten Wolverine in now, so I believe they have all three currently in stock. I'll have a link in the video description below to Mr. Sinister. And if I remember, I will put it in for Wolverine and Jubilee. But you could just search like Jubilee, search Wolverine, search Sinister, and it'll pop up. But having the three next to each other, they all look really good. I love, right, X-Men the animated series. For a lot of us, you know, especially my age, you know, that's what we grew up loving. You know, you may have read the comics, but if you were watching TV, you watched the show. So X-Men the animated series, Spider-Man the animated series, that's when our love, my love for Marvel started. was through these animated shows. So it's really cool to get these. But again, looking at Jubilee, looking at Wolverine, right, the cell shading is pretty subtle, right? It doesn't... It blends in nicely. The colors aren't too drastic from the colors of the figure. So like that darker like yellow over the jacket, over Wolverine's yellow, it's minimal. It's not noticeable because it blends in nicely. It's just the gray and the blue, such a heavy contrast, not being, you know, the same color. Like if it was a dark blue or something, I probably wouldn't hate it as much because it would blend in nicely. It would look a little bit more subtle. But because the gray is just such a different color from the blue altogether, it really throws it off. Am I making a big deal out of it? Yes, 100%. Do I like it? I still don't. I still don't. So it's just a preference. I prefer not to have cell shading on figures, but with this line, that's what we got. So we're kind of stuck with it. If you don't like the cell shading, don't buy it. I'm a completist, so I'm going to buy it. And I love the show, the cartoon, the VHS box. I think is a pretty cool idea. You know, if they're going to do something that is plastic free, at least with these ones, there's cool artwork to go along with it. Same thing G.I. Joe is doing. Marvel Legends with the Spider-Man stuff, we haven't seen that because they're throwing a digital render on the front of the box. It kind of sucks. But these with the awesome artwork, I really like it. I can overlook Sinister, but I still don't like it. But you guys let me know down in the comments below. What do you think of the cell shading? What do you think of this Mr. Sinister? Have you picked up any of the three or all of the three, or picking and choosing? Let me know in the comments below. If you guys like this video, please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. As always, thank you for watching.